Happy Spiritual Sunday. We meet once again. It's a new week. We're 11 days into the new month, the month of Cancer. Many of you understand the idea that even in physicality, physiology, a cancer cell is not a cell outside, let's call it, the human body per se. It's a normal cell that goes wild, that stops acting in its proper, original, foundational way of behaving. And of course, we've come to understand Kabbalistically and many spiritual teachings saying similar things, that the only reason that a physical body doesn't operate in its healthy and vital, God-given method is because we, with our free will, have done something to block the light that's in our soul from shining into the physical cells of our body. And therefore, the physical cells of our body have to show us and give us hints about what we're doing to block that light, what we're doing to clog our spiritual veins and arteries that then become manifest. And that's why there are various, books out there on what each type of disease or ailment represents on a spiritual level: fear, insecurity, whatever it may be. So you and I, because we're here, even it's Spiritual Sunday, it's based in the wisdom and the teachings of the Kabbalah Centre that started with Rav Ashlag, Rav Yehuda Ashlag, 100 years ago, to bring this universal technology of the soul, because there's only one soul, to every human being on earth. And so today is going to be another aspect of that. And as we always do, now that we're populating online here, let's start with something from Karen. And of course, we know everything is synchronistic. So I opened this up, which is very apropos to today. And this is from Karen's book, Simple Light. Oftentimes, it's easier for someone who is new to the spiritual path to transform than it is for people who have been doing this work for a longer time. When we consider ourselves spiritual, it becomes harder for us to see those negative traits within us that we are being called to examine. We've allowed a layer of, quote, dust to settle, so we must remove that dust layer by layer to see those things that are important for us to cleanse and transform. And after so many years in the center, I can tell you, yes, not only for myself, but basically for every student that has persevered to stay in the center, to work with this teaching, to transform their lives and continue to transform. It's not easy to, as one grows, see their negativity. The irony is, or the paradox is, the more one grows, the more our negativity is thrown in our face. And then, as Karen's saying, then comes the choice. Think we're spiritual and find a way to justify, ignore, because it comes in many ways more subtle and therefore, so to speak, easier to avoid, put off, postpone, ignore, deny, justify, rationalize. But the pain of it, I tell you by personal experience, doesn't go away. It's whether one is willing to persevere, to face it, to understand the blessing that's hiding inside that veil, thin covering of whatever the painful emotion is. Fear, jealousy, insecurity, guilt, shame, whatever. But that's what we have to face, and we'll talk a little more about that today. So thank you for being with us. Let's, as we always do, let's say together our affirmation so that we more deeply, and this is what we want to hold. Yes, we say the same thing week by week. Our spiritual work is not to say it the same way, not to hold the same consciousness as we say it, but to strengthen our desire for a deeper awakening, as Karen said, to see the dusts, to see the blockages that are hiding the eternal blessings, the 100% lasting fulfillment that the Creator implanted in us, that it's our spiritual work to make manifest and therefore enjoy. So we say it together. Consciousness is everything. I raise my consciousness today to see the miracles and wonders of life. I commit myself to behave with greater love, compassion, and kindness towards all human beings. Okay. So let's start with this more physical idea. You know, the earth, they say, 12,000 miles around or 24,000 miles around. And thousands of years ago, there were a lot less people on the planet. And as the population grew, we started to become aware of the problem with garbage, right? You couldn't just take, garbage to what they have now, a garbage dump. Because at some point, with so many people dumping so much garbage, too much garbage wouldn't have enough space. So you can look at it different ways. It's an idea already out there. Collectively, it wasn't such an issue, so nobody awakened an awareness of the cosmic solution. As the Zohar says, always the solution exists before the problem. And what happened? What we often do and around the world in various levels, recycling. Recycling was born, taking something that we used to call garbage and finding a ways and a means to transform it into something that's new and useful. The simple one, you take glass bottles or whatever, you recycle it into other glass products, etc. Saves space, saves resources, actually created new recycling companies and associated businesses with that, and therefore more jobs and even a greater awareness of what they call composting, being able to take some things and instead of throwing in the garbage, that which can be used back as nature, in nature, putting it back in the ground to be used. Now, what we're going to speak about today is not for the faint-hearted, not for the weak of spirit, not for the self-involved. People who are looking for just making my life better, their life better, trying to solve their problems. No, we all can benefit in that way. But what I'm really gearing this lesson is to those who truly motivated, driven to fulfill the objective that we came to earth. Those who want to end all the pain, suffering, and death and the destruction in the world, and those who want to, willing to do what it takes to see peace on earth with mercy, as the Zohar says. And so just to remind us, because we know there's that AI program we planted called the opponent, the evil inclination, ego, adversary, whatever name you want to give it, that's also a force of forgetfulness. That's part of the challenge. Forget things that have happened, forget what's happening, forget that there is a system that is universal, because it's the system of the soul and not the system of the body. It's of the one soul from the one creator, that perfect creator, and it's not of religion per se or a spiritual teaching. It is universal technology of the soul. And so just to remind us, fundamentally, the only reason we left the world of endless light, what's known as the endless world, because it's endless light, was one simple thing. We came here to imitate what the Creator did, which means the Creator, whatever name you'll give it, whatever way you think of it, is just the emanator of light, the infinite force of true consciousness, eternal bliss, how to be what people call spiritual, but what really means making use of the spirit, our soul that carries the light of the Creator, to shine our light as the Creator does, unconditionally, 24/7, unconditionally. That's our job. No exceptions, no time nor place nor set of circumstances nor behavior that from our point of view we can justify not sending light out of our heart and soul to someone somewhere on earth. So as spiritual people, we understand the power of energy. Yes, we talk about the light of God, that energy. We know even scientifically, and therefore how much more spiritually, science tells us energy, even what they call physical energy, cannot be destroyed, only transformed. Only transformed. Now, here comes a little more depth, a little more perhaps shocking to many of us, but nonetheless absolute truth. The energy that we know of as the light of God, yes, it's infinite, but it's also in human hands with the human free will. It is therefore in our hands to decide how we transform that energy, because it cannot be destroyed, it can only be transformed. So you and I have learned that every time a person behaves with insensitivity, anger, judgment, it's transforming that pure light of God, of infinite blessings, peace, love, kindness, prosperity, health, protection, all the blessings of the light. A person transforms it into a temporary form of chaos, difficulty, challenges, obstacles, pain and suffering. Look at history. History shows us that the use of the light of God as hatred, revenge, war, fighting, guilt, shame, greed, lust, ego, just gets recycled. Cannot be destroyed, only transformed. But we've allowed it to be transformed from one form of war, one place, one group of people over history, to therefore be transformed into war, but in another country, in another way, in a larger or smaller aspect, but it's the same thing. hatred, violence, anger, blame, victimization has just recycled from one form to another, one place. I remember growing up in high school, they used to teach us World War I was known as the war to end all wars. It didn't, because we didn't transform the energy of the hatred, the blame, guilt, anger, whatever it was. We just used that energy to fight with another part of the one soul that exists in the world, the one soul of humanity. And yes, temporarily, there was a time of peace or no wars, and then came other wars, and other wars, and other wars. And today, it may not be war in the same way we usually think of it, the bombs and the guns and the tanks and this, but pretty much there's war everywhere. On one level or another, neighbors with neighbors, political parties, economic strata, social circles, all over the world. The better, the worse, the higher, the lower, the smarter, the less smart, whatever way people want to define the other side, but it's the same energy, the same material over and over again. Let me throw one more in there. As I think I mentioned a few minutes ago, the brighter light, based on what Karen said, the more a person grows spiritually, meaning uncover and allow to be manifest more of the light that the Creator implanted in us, the more subtle the challenges get. And therefore, let me give you first an example, and then leading into two probably of the most powerful sources of chaos, destruction, but less obvious. So, you see in the movies, okay, thank goodness I haven't been in court to see this or whatever, some of you may have, but you see in the movies when you have a lawsuit, a court drama, criminal, whatever it is, so they're in court, there's the jury sitting there, and one of the lawyers says something, inflammatory, whatever, Mr. So-and-so, Ms. So-and-so, you did this, you acted this way, blah, 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 blah. And the other side objects, the other lawyer. Objection, Your Honor. And the judge says, okay, the objection is sustained, and then looks at the 12 people on the jury and says, the jury will, what's the word? The jury will disregard what was just said. But you and I know, as we're watching the show, it's already in their minds. It's already implanted there. Once it's there, it's almost impossible to disregard it, to not remember what was said and the way it was said, because the energy usually is so powerful, so emotional, passionate. So here comes two things that the Zohar and the Kabbalists explain in many ways is more destructive than the bombs, the guns, and yet it doesn't seem that way. Gossip and jealousy. Gossip and jealousy. Karen often said the payment, if you will, the negativity that goes along with jealousy is the person who feels jealous all the time, and therefore nothing. If a person is acting with jealousy, then nothing will salve them. Nothing will make them feel fulfilled, because there's always something else that's their opponent in their head, that AI program will point to be jealous of. That person has a 6-month newer car than they do. That person has $10 more in the bank than they do. That person has in some organization a job one level higher. There'll always be something to be jealous of. And therefore, Karen used to say, the punishment of jealousy is the jealousy itself. Gossip. We all know when you stop and think about it. Oh, gossip, what is he talking about? Somebody about didn't hit them, didn't beat them, didn't steal from them, whatever. That's not true. Kabbalistically, at the end of the story, a person who's gossiped about, not only is that person being hurt, the person who's speaking the gossip and the person who's hearing the gossip are all being defected, destroyed, harmed. Because once gossip goes out there, it's virtually impossible to heal it. Jealousy, according to the Kabbalists, jealousy that brings what often, at least traditionally, has been called evil eye. According to the Kabbalists, 99 out of 100 people who die before their time die of evil eye, jealousy. So it's much more subtle. And again, it just keeps recycling one way or another. The person who's acting with jealousy towards somebody else or speaking gossip towards somebody else often will have it spoken or done back to them. And it just keeps going on and on. So even after that person is no longer in somebody's life that they're jealous of, then they'll find something else to be jealous of. Spiritual recycling. It'll keep going again and again and again, what the Kabbalists call the tikkun process, the correction process, until we correct our negativity by transformation. Energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. Only transformed. So jealousy into gratitude, appreciation for your own blessings, etc. Now, here comes, some of you may have heard this before, maybe you've read Rav Ashлаг's book on world peace. But here it goes. Everything in reality has the right to exist. Everything that exists in reality, whether good or bad, and this is Rav Ashlag, probably the highest consciousness in the last at least 500 to 1,000 years. Everything that exists in reality, whether good or bad, including the most evil and damage-causing thing in the world, has the right to exist to the degree that destroying it and removing it completely from the world is forbidden. Why? Now maybe you have a little more idea. Because it just recycles. It's only gotten rid of temporarily. How many genocidal maniacs over history, warmongers, did we get rid of? And yet, like we said in the beginning, but war and hatred continues to recycle. So, what does Rav Ashlag say? Rather, our duty is only to repair or fix it and guide it towards goodness. For even a casual observation of any sort at the work of creation that lies before us is enough for us to infer the high degree of perfection of Him who has created it, meaning the Creator. Therefore, we have to understand and take great care that we do not find faults in any part of creation, declaring this or that to be superfluous and unnecessary, because this amounts to giving a bad name, heaven forbid, to Him who created it, the Creator. Essentially, he goes on, just to save time, he says, like, for example, this is the reason why, for example, when we taste the bitterness of a fruit in its initial stages of growth, we do not judge this to be a fault or a blemish in the fruit. We all know that the reason for the bitter taste, it is because the fruit has not yet completed its growth process of evolution to the end. Because in the end it will be sweet. This too is the case with all other particular parts of reality. Thus, if we feel that some particular part of creation is destructive or evil, this indicates only that it is in a transition phase in terms of its evolutionary process. In any case, we should not conclude that it is not good and find faults in this particular part, for this would be unwise. Think in your life, have you ever had an argument with somebody that initially in that argument you felt like, that's it, end of the relationship. But somehow, maybe because they were a loved one or a close friend, whatever, you made an effort to work through that difficult, divisive, hurtful, frictional moment of that relationship. And when you look back through that process of, as Rav Asha called it, sweetening process, the relationship grew stronger and closer. Ever had a negative event turn into a blessing? I had a guy once, years back, first couple years I was teaching, was a stockbroker. And he came into class one day, because we had talked about something similar to this, and he said, he just had one of the most miraculous events, as he called it. He miswrote an order for stock. And you're talking back in, let's say, the early 90s, when things weren't as computerized as they are now. He miswrote an order that, as it took effect, he thought it was the biggest mistake in his career, only to find out shortly thereafter that it turned into one of the biggest blessings he had ever had. So think in your life, where in your past, and think even as recently as possible, and yes, you can go way back also, where in your life there was some negative challenge, some difficulty, some obstacle, that because you persevered, you focused, you made the effort to push through it, you made the effort to see it through, because you didn't want to stay stuck in that darkness. You didn't want to stay with that hurtful, negative feeling. And you pushed through, you persevered, and whether the other person changed or the situation initially changed, you kept working and working and working until you were at a greater level of, let's say, peace and serenity, and then maybe simultaneously or maybe shortly thereafter, things externally turned around, even if it meant leaving one job and finding a better job, leaving one difficult relationship to find a better relationship. For those who really want, as I mentioned at the beginning, to achieve the mission for which we came, to reveal all the light of your soul and therefore manifest all the blessings that you've already been given, then it's essential to remember those times when darkness turned to light, chaos became order, anxiety, stress of some level, some way, became greater peace and serenity, greater clarity, guidance and direction. Hold those moments, hold in your consciousness gratitude and appreciation so that they will continue to grow. And remember, because the system of the light, as we learn it in the center from the great Kabbalists and the Zohar itself, if one person can do it, everyone can do it. If you've experienced it at least once, then we can always make those things happen. Because it doesn't start on the outside. It doesn't change on the outside. Usually, when things appear to change on the outside right away, it's only because a person behaved reactively, self-involved, what we call desire to see oneself alone, and like a short-circuited bulb, there's an immediate flash of light, and then it goes dark. So there's an immediate sense of instant fulfillment, but short-term gratitude and appreciation, short-term blessings. And then the darkness comes again, because that energy of reactivity, that unlight-like behavior just keeps recycling, like we're talking about. Recycle again into another challenge, recycle into another difficult situation, recycle into another difficult job, bad relationship. But of course, in the beginning, it all looks great. Think of those things also, because the key to transformation is consciousness. Consciousness is everything. As the Zohar says, as we often repeat, here, Spiritual Sunday, and in the center, consciousness is everything, because a shift of consciousness becomes actions of light. The same old consciousness, the desire to see for oneself alone, that consciousness, lacking effort, perseverance, commitment to be on the path of the light, will just keep recycling. The same difficulty over and over, the same ailment, the same bad relationship, the same bad job, the same bad situation in life. It'll just recycle, but it'll look differently. One job, a different city, a different relationship, different people, different social circles, whatever it may be. Because people carry themselves everywhere they go. They carry their tikkun, the good that they've done, and the reactivity that's covered up their next blessings. It goes with the person everywhere they go. And since like attracts like, cause and effect, every reactive behavior eventually will come back in a situation to push that same button in that same person. Also the other side, when we act in transformational sharing, uncomfortably sharing our light into the darkness of whatever difficult situation, obstacle, challenge confronts us, then also that higher level of light-like behavior will find its way to come back to us in a blessed form, but a blessing that lasts, not a blessing that's temporary. So just a couple quick examples. There was a student years ago on his way to work, had a car accident, minor fender bender, but he banged his head, he bumped his head on the steering wheel or whatever. So as the paramedics came, yes, it wasn't a major accident, but he bumped his head, and I guess with their cautiousness, I don't know if they actually made him, but they took him to the hospital to get an exam, whatever x-ray or whatever it was of his head. Up to that point, he had no issues physically. He was fine, supposedly great health, whatever. But because of the accident and the paramedics sort of pushing him, forcing him to go get examined, they found a tiny spot of what was the beginnings of what they called brain cancer. So was the accident good or bad? Of course, in the first moment, perspective could have been delay, can't get to work, whatever's going to happen at work now is delayed, problems, whatever else may come from that. Not good. But in the end of the story, that fender bender saved his life. Because had he not, the cancer could have grown and that could have been the end of him. There's a story I may have said before, but it's sort of, for me, one of the most prime, obvious examples. There was a woman came to one of the teachers, difficulty in job. She, single mother, didn't have a lot of money, couldn't find a job, whatever. And the teacher had the inspiration at that moment, even though she was in difficult situations, encouraged her to buy the set of Zohar. And she didn't have a lot of money, but somehow her heart was touched and she was willing to buy, even though it was, quote, uncomfortable and around her even illogical. She bought the Zohar, started to scan it, channeling the light as she was taught by the teacher, that everyone, shining the light out into the world, that everyone will find their right job. In a very short time, she found an amazing job. She was traveling around the country, training professionals with a particular piece of equipment that her company was selling so they could use it to help people. Great, wonderful. Whatever it was, a year later, year and a half later, she comes back to the teacher and now she's saying, the Zohar stopped working. Says, why? She says, because she lost the job. Well, he explained to her, like you and I often speak about, the light can never create darkness. The Zohar doesn't stop working. It may not appear to be, and obviously she lost this job, a great job, whatever. So of course the opponent puts in her head, yeah, see, it stopped working. It stopped working. And the teacher spoke to her and helped her to understand and hold consciousness. Keep scanning, keep channeling light like she did, keep giving and sharing. Because the light has to be only good. Even like Rav Ashlag said, what appears to be even negative in her case, losing the job, has to be part of the sweetening process, meaning pushing you, me, and all humanity towards the goal of acting like the light all the time. What you and I are learning is how to do it more voluntarily without the pain and suffering from the outside, without the negative challenges. Challenge yourself to do the sharing. Challenge yourself to be kind when you don't feel like it, to be generous when you don't see a reason or feel like it, to be humble when you don't feel like it, when the ego wants to rise up. That transformation is what will change judgment, as it's called, meaning just having to get more hit over the head by life, by paying it off up front, being willing to step into the darkness and turn on the light. And what happened? A couple weeks after she lost her job, she realized what was the blessing. She had been scheduled on a flight from the West Coast to the East Coast. And that plane that she was supposed to be on, had she been still in that job, was one of the planes that hit the Twin Towers. So like the accident, was it good or bad she lost the job? Well, at first, obviously it doesn't look good. In the end of the story, it was good. So it's essential, and I had this conversation actually a few times these last couple weeks with students, people who push themselves, people who are making an effort to act with greater certainty, to trust the system, to work with the system, scan the Zohar, use the various tools, give, be generous for the center, help us spread the Zohar and this wisdom of Kabbalah. Send light into the darkness in various areas of their life. The light gets brighter. As Karen said, more of our garbage from past lives comes to the surface. And often the first thought, because as Karen said, we're becoming more and more spiritual. In this case of these few students of recent time, their first thought was, when the challenge comes, what did they do wrong? Because if it's cause and effect, and things were going well and they were seeing miracles and this, and suddenly there's this big challenge comes. So of course, that opponent, Satan, puts in their head, what did they do wrong? What mistake did they make? But for me, as I share now with you, I shared with them, when a person is doing the work, when the person is making an effort to grow their consciousness, to grow their actions of sharing, to make that effort of strengthening the spiritual muscle that the Creator implanted in us of its light self, sharing the light into the darkness, sharing light when we don't feel like it, sharing in uncomfortable ways of the moment. The more you do that, then when the challenges show up, it's actually the blessing of the light. And in simple terms, what these particular students going through was a replacement, because it was sort of physical things in their life that was challenging them. It was a replacement for things that were supposed to happen to them physically. As we often talk about it, and I call it paying your spiritual debt pennies on the dollar. And that's the consciousness of what did I do right, not what did I do wrong. Thinking about looking back and seeing this miracle happened, I pushed myself, this happened, I pushed myself, this happened, and understanding that's the way of the light. If you're shining brighter light into the world, it's going to show you those more subtle things. Even like we said today, the gossip, the jealousy, things like that. We want to see how we're holding back our own blessings. Yes, not always pretty and not always comfortable, but it's because we're doing the right things, we're committed to achieve the end of pain, suffering, and death, and we want to manifest our eternal blessings, not only for us, but for the world. So concluding, before we do our meditation, the Kabbalah Centre is not just a nice organization teaching Kabbalah and giving people spiritual ideas. And no, Kabbalah Centre is looking for those. Technically, what the Kabbalists say, which is also powerful and sometimes maybe a little difficult to grasp, the Kabbalah Centre is looking for those that want to stop the chaos and the insanity, meaning doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Get rid of the negativity, like we read from Rav Ashlag. Try and get rid of that which we don't like, which we think is bad, even which we think is evil. Instead of sweetening it, bringing it through the sweetening process. No. We're looking for the 22,000. That's the number the Kabbalists use, that want to stop the insanity, are willing to do things differently, that want to be the spiritual warriors, but the true spiritual warriors, because there are a lot of people talking about being a spiritual warrior, but a true spiritual warrior, willing to go into the true battle against the negative thought in our head, the AI program there. The true battle, which means when we don't see the reason to, when we see the darkness, when we have externally justification, those are evil people doing bad things individually or collectively. No, the true battle, acting like the Creator all the time, shining our soul's light on all people, all the time, all circumstances, because we want to be victorious over that snake, it's called, the evil inclination, the evil adversary, the opponent, the angel of death, ego, whatever name you want to give it, even Satan, the Aramaic word for challenger, obstacle creator, opposition. That's the only war that there really is. Consciousness is everything. The war of Armageddon, as it's called, is in Aramaic, Kabbalistically, is the war of thoughts. Because this is the only battlefield there is. What goes on here in our consciousness, the side that wins in your head, is determining what the actions that you will do are. So the center looking for those warriors who are willing to beat, who want to beat that voice of opposition, that AI program, the enemy within, if you will, and express 24/7 the light of the Creator in all ways. And that means, yes, as in war, it means killing. But what kind of killing? Killing darkness with light, killing hatred with love, killing jealousy with gratitude and appreciation, killing gossip with seeing good in a person and speaking kind words, inspiration, helping them to move out of, as Rav Ashlag says, the bitter situation into the sweet, killing wickedness, desire to see oneself alone, reactivity, with true righteousness. Uncomfortable, transformational sharing of light into the darkness of whatever challenge, so that in the end of the story, we can kill the hell on earth and replace it with an earth filled with loving, kind, peaceful, unified, light beings that the Creator created, and therefore experience true, lasting heaven on earth. God bless. As always, a reminder, please make sure you, your loved ones, your friends, business people, even people that you meet in your daily activities, make sure that you're handing out at least a pocket Zohar. This sacred Zohar is all the Aramaic of the 23 volumes of Zohar, but it's the Aramaic which is the part that wakes up the light of the Creator inside every heart and soul. And so by spreading the Zohar and just the infinite light of the Creator shining brighter and brighter in the world, that's how we get rid of the darkness. Getting rid of the darkness wakes people up to see the reality. Even those who are caught in the bitterness of negativity, even evil actions, we have to, if you're a true warrior of light, keep in mind, every human being is created by the Creator and given a piece of its perfect light. Yes, they've covered it up so much that they're doing those evil behaviors. But you and I, as warriors, what we want to get rid of, what we want to kill, is the negative thoughts, is that part of the AI program of opposition. That's what we want to defeat by actions of love, kindness, and compassion. Greater acts of sharing the light. The Zohar, in the various forms, are ways to just activate the light in our soul to such a degree that we have strength. Because often you and I, in particular, will have an idea, I want to share, but you don't feel you have the strength to yet beat your opponent and all the justification for negative behavior. Do some extra scanning, channel the light out to that situation, and through them, like we do with our meditations, through that situation, those people into the world, to the hearts and souls of everybody. That will be the boost of energy, of the light that you need to be able to do that action that you have already been guided to, inspired to do. And the more we do it, the more we're influencing everyone else. So what I want to do with our meditation, let me do this. So those of you who feel inspired, appreciative of what you're learning here, what you hear here, what you get in the center, and you want to speed up the process. Oh, okay. So you have, okay, I put one link. I'm not sure it's the, okay. We'll put the link up after also. For those of you who would like to donate and support this, remember what goes around comes around. So what you put out in the world to help 8.5 billion people will come back to you many times over. So this is one of the 72 names that I was inspired today. Pei He Lamed. And I'm sure most of you are familiar. The Aramaic letters are literally just the power of the Creator, photons, if you will, of the light of God, or particles of the light of God, whatever name you want to call it, they just shine the light of God, period. So by scanning them, Pei He Lamed, they're awakening a particular facet of the Creator's behavior within us. And in this case, Pei He Lamed is generally known as victory over addiction. But today, the addiction that I want to overcome is the addiction to Satan, the opponent, the adversary, the evil inclination, the snake, whatever name you want to give that nasty voice in your head. That's what we want to overcome. Our addiction to reactive behavior. Addiction to instant gratification. So just let Pei He Lamed, let it be engraved in your mind's eye. And then I ask you, sit comfortably in your chair, feet flat on the floor, hands in your lap. A few deep breaths to relax into the light, breathing in through the nose, holding the breath for a moment, exhale through the mouth. Taking in the light of the Creator in the breath. And God breathed into man, and man became a living soul. The breath containing that light of the Creator. Take a deep breath through your nose. Hold it for a moment. Let it fill you head to toe. Exhale through the mouth. Letting go of any tension, any blockage. Increasing the circulation of light in and through you. Cleansing out darkness, negativity, present or past. Feeling the light of God in and around you to a greater, more intense sense. Feeling it waking up inside you. Activating more of your desire to share, be like the Creator, a spiritual warrior. And now together let's envision Pei He Lamed. See those 3 nanoparticles of the light of God just above your head, shining with the pure white light of the endless, vibrating with the energy of the light. True unconditional love. And the particular vibration of victory over addiction. The addiction to the illusion, addiction to reactivity. And let the Pei He Lamed enter through the top of your head. filling you from head to toe with a new awakening, a new level of strength over the voice of that opponent in your head, over any desire of instant gratification. Pei He Lamed, replacing that desire for instant and short-term gratification, for the desire for short-term uncomfortable sharing and long-term peace, harmony, and blessings. If you have a particular issue that you need strength and clarity, ask now, drawing on the light of Pei He Lamed that's awakening in your heart, soul, and mind. That you hear the voice of your soul guiding you, inspiring you, directing you how to handle that situation as the light, bringing light not only through you, but to everyone in those situations. And begin already seeing, feeling, acknowledging a greater sense of peace as you hear the voice of your soul, as you feel the energy of light being awakened. And together we take a beam of the light of Pei He Lamed from our heart and soul and shine it out through our family and friends into whatever situation has been weighing on our mind, through all the people that are involved in those situations, reaching their heart and soul and awakening the Pei He Lamed in them, overcoming their addictions to the illusion, reactive, instant gratification behaviors. And let's shine the Pei He Lamed, the light of God, through those forms, Pei He Lamed, out from those situations to the heart and soul of every human being on earth, raising the revelation of light in the one universal soul that the Creator created, that exists in what appears to be 8.5 billion bodies, but is truly only one soul. Shining it out, letting the light circulate, drawing it from above, through the top of your head, channeling through these nanoparticles, Pei He Lamed, out from your heart and soul to every person on earth. Unconditional. Bringing every human being, by awakening their soul through the transformation sweetening process, speeding it up, that we all are revealing our true, pure, and perfect light beingness. Letting our true godlike being shine out, be manifest in everything we do. Accelerating the process of removing pain, suffering, and death, bringing the world back to its original, perfect Garden of Eden state. Remember this feeling, vision, sensation, experience. Keep it in the forefront of your mind. Commit yourself to grow this process every day of your life moving forward, knowing that is the only way to manifest all your blessings and simultaneously help the world to grow, to elevate, to expand consciousness to the oneness of humanity. To the power of the Creator within each of us. That we unify enough of us to transform the planet from the darkness to the ultimate of eternal light and eternal blessings. And together we take one more deep breath, anchoring it, solidifying this awareness, consciousness into our heart and soul. And slowly exhale and open your eyes. Thank you for joining us again. Please share this with other people. Let's find the other 22,000 true, dedicated, committed warriors. That we lead the world in the true battle, not a battle against any person on earth, but a battle against the true enemy opponent, that AI program, that parasitic voice that seeks to take our energy by encouraging reactive behaviors. Let's do that battle of consciousness, that together in unity with the Zohar and the various Kabbalistic tools, that we can make that happen, the end of chaos, pain, suffering, and death in our lifetime, now. God bless.